Ksoo was brutally stabbed just hours after entering jail, an incident that has left the hip-hop world in shock and raised serious questions about his safety, especially after his own father turned on him and helped send him behind bars. What seemed like the ultimate betrayal turned into the beginning of a nightmare for the young rapper, who was rushed to the hospital the very day he arrived in prison. The story of Ksoo's downfall has taken a devastating and chilling turn that nobody could have seen coming. After being publicly humiliated by the very man who gave him life, his own father, Ksoo's journey into the prison system started off with bloodshed and pain. And as we peel back the layers of betrayal, revenge, street politics, and survival, one thing becomes terrifyingly clear. This was personal. Let's rewind a little. Before the chaos erupted behind bars, Ksoo was already caught in a media frenzy due to the shocking decision made by his father, Abdul Robinson Sr., to testify against him in court. It was a move that shook the rap world, not just because of the betrayal, but because of the message it sent. In a culture built on loyalty, silence, and holding it down no matter what, Ksoo's own father basically threw him to the wolves in the most public way possible. And it didn't take long for karma, or street justice, depending on how you look at it, to strike back viciously. On his very first day inside, Ksoo was targeted and attacked by an inmate who allegedly had ties to one of Ksoo's rumored past victims. According to whispers making rounds both online and in the streets, this was not some random act of violence. This wasn't just another jailhouse squabble. This was a hit. This was revenge. This was blood for blood. Eyewitnesses from inside the jail claim that as soon as Ksoo was placed in general population, a move that is being heavily criticized now, he was approached by a group of inmates who had been waiting on him. Among them was one man who reportedly didn't hesitate to stab the rapper multiple times before guards could intervene. Within minutes, blood was everywhere, and the prison sirens were screaming. Ksoo was bleeding out on the concrete floor, barely conscious. He was immediately rushed to the nearest hospital in critical condition. Authorities had kept a tight lid on the exact details of his injuries, but word on the inside says he was stabbed in the chest and lower abdomen, possibly puncturing a lung. Some reports say he flatlined twice before medical staff were able to stabilize him. It's a miracle he's even alive, but those close to him say the fight to survive is far from over. This kind of violence, so swift and targeted, leaves no doubt that Ksoo's presence in prison is a walking threat to his own life. The inmates know who he is. They know what he's accused of, and they know his father betrayed him. That combination makes Ksoo not only a high-profile target, but a vulnerable one. He's hated by those who seek revenge, and he's abandoned by the one man who should have protected him at all costs. That's a deadly place to be in any prison. And while many might think the drama ends here, it's really just a beginning. See, the entire case around Ksoo was already tangled with street beef, unresolved murders, and a history of violence that made him a symbol of Jacksonville's most dangerous elements. He wasn't just a rapper. He was allegedly the muscle behind some serious street wars. So when the news broke that he was locked up and on his own, a lot of people who had stayed quiet suddenly felt emboldened. Word is, some inmates inside that facility had been waiting for this day for a long time. They didn't forget what Ksoo allegedly did to their homies. And they made sure he didn't forget either. The part that really stings, though, Ksoo didn't even get a chance to breathe behind those walls. He wasn't in for 24 hours before it all went south. That tells you just how calculated this was. This wasn't about a jail dispute or a misunderstanding. This was a long-awaited act of vengeance carried out with cold precision. Now, let's talk about the father in all of this, Abdul Robinson Sr. The internet has already crucified him for testifying against his own son. Some call him brave, saying he did what was morally right. Others call him the biggest snake in the game, a man who chose self-preservation over blood. But no matter which side you stand on, it's impossible to ignore the fact that his decision didn't just send his son to prison. It put a target on his back, a big, bloody target. By cooperating with the feds and essentially handing over his own son on a silver platter, Abdul Robinson made sure that Ksoo walked into that prison with no allies, no friends, no backup, just enemies. And you better believe the inmates took full advantage of that. The conversation around this betrayal has sparked a bigger discussion in the hip-hop community about loyalty, fatherhood, and consequences. Some rappers have come forward publicly saying they could never imagine snitching on their own blood. Others have taken a more nuanced approach, acknowledging that if their kid was involved in evil, they wouldn't protect them. But when that line is crossed, when your own father becomes a nail in your coffin, it changes you forever, and it puts your safety at risk, especially in a place like prison. As of now, Ksoo is reportedly back in custody under intense medical supervision. He's expected to survive, but his condition is still being monitored closely. And even though the physical wounds may eventually heal, the psychological damage is permanent. This is a young man who just got stabbed nearly to death in prison, while still trying to process the fact that his father, his blood, was the reason he's even there in the first place. Sources close to the family say Ksoo is traumatized. He doesn't trust anyone anymore. Not the guards, not his lawyers, and definitely not his family. That mental isolation could be more damaging than the stab wounds themselves. But here's the bigger question. Is this the last time something like this will happen? Probably not. Because now that word is out that Ksoo survived the first hit, there's a chance others may try again. Some inmates don't take kindly to failed missions. They view survival as unfinished business. So unless Ksoo is placed under permanent protective custody, a move that comes with its own set of dangers, he's going to remain a walking target for the rest of his sentence. The situation has even gotten so intense that some of Ksoo's former allies on the outside are trying to figure out how to get him transferred or moved to a safer facility. But that's not easy. When you're considered a high-risk inmate with a violent reputation, your options are limited. The system doesn't look at you as a victim. They look at you as a threat. And sadly, for Ksoo, the walls are closing in fast. Even fans are starting to question if he'll make it through the next year alive. Hashtags like hashtag pray for Ksoo and hashtag justice for Ksoo have been trending, but others are not as sympathetic. Some believe this is karma, a twisted reflection of the life he once glorified in his music. The violence he allegedly contributed to is now circling back with a vengeance. One thing is certain, this story is far from over. Ksoo isn't safe. Not in court, not in prison, not even in the hospital. This is the raw, brutal reality of what happens when betrayal, street justice, and fame collide. And in the case of Ksoo, the price of that collision might be his life.